Hey everyone, we hear about renewable energy all the time, right? But how do you actually rewire an entire country to run on clean power? Believe me, it's not just about popping a few solar panels on a roof. It's a massive puzzle involving engineering, economics, you name it. And today, we're going to look at the actual blueprint for how it gets done. So here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll look at just how big this puzzle is. Then we'll get into the government rules that get the ball rolling. From there, we'll see how a specific rule forces the big energy companies to change, and, this is the cool part, how a whole new marketplace makes it profitable. Then we'll cover the battery tech that solves renewables' single biggest weakness. And finally, we'll put all those pieces together to see what the grid of the future really looks like. All right, so let's just start with the sheer scale of this thing. For, 100 years, our power grid has been built around a handful of huge, centralized power plants. But shifting to renewables? That means completely rewiring the system to handle thousands of smaller sources, like wind and solar. It's a total flip of the old model. So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? How do you actually do it? Well, it's not just one magic bullet. It's really a three-part solution that needs smart government policy, a brand new kind of financial market, and, of course, some incredible technology. Let's dig into how they all have to work together. You know, when you see images like this, you really get a sense of just how ambitious this is. The old grid was simple, a few giant power plants pushing electricity out. The new grid has to be way smarter, managing power coming in from countless different places, huge solar farms, scattered wind turbines, all at the same time. We're talking about a complete reimagining of how we get our electricity. Okay, so how do you even begin a change this big? You can't just cross your fingers and hope all these big companies will switch on their own. Nope. You have to lay down the rules of the game. And that is where policy comes in. Everything starts with policy. It's the official game plan. It tells the entire energy industry, okay, folks, this is the direction we're heading, and this is how fast we're going to get there. And maybe most importantly, it gives companies the confidence they need to start pouring billions of dollars into green technology. And right at the very heart of that policy is one specific strategy. It's designed to get the absolute biggest players in the game to go green. It's called the Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS for short. So think of the RPS as a direct order. The government points at the biggest power companies, we're talking ones with over 500 megawatts of capacity, and tells them, hey, a certain chunk of your electricity has to come from renewables. And by the way, that percentage is going to go up every single year. The key thing here? It's not a suggestion, it's mandatory. And the whole process is really methodical. First, the government identifies these obligated suppliers. Second, it gives them their quota for the year. Third, these companies have to hit that target. They can do it by either building their own wind farm, let's say, or by buying green energy from somebody else. Then, every year, they get checked. And if they fail to meet their quota, they get hit with some pretty hefty fines. It's a system with real teeth. Now, that third step, building or buying green energy, that's where things get really, really interesting. Because to make that possible, you basically have to invent a whole new economic engine. You have to create a marketplace. I mean, think about it. How do you turn a megawatt hour of sunshine into something that a giant power company can trade on a market to meet its government mandate? Well, you do it by creating a new kind of currency. And here it is. It's called a Renewable Energy Certificate, or a REC. It's simple, really. Every time a certified solar farm or wind turbine produces 1 megawatt hour of electricity, it also generates one REC. That certificate is the proof, and it's sellable. So a big power company can just buy up these RECs to hit its quota. But wait, that's only half the story. The REC is for the greenness, but the actual electricity, that gets sold at what's called the System Marginal Price, or SMP. This is the live, real-time price for power on the grid, and it's changing constantly based on how much power we all need. Okay, check this out. It's pretty fascinating. See that bottom yellow layer? Think of that as your cheapest power, the stuff that's always on. Now, as the day goes on and we all use more electricity, the grid operator has to turn on more and more expensive power plants, stacking them on top. The price for everyone is set by that very last, most expensive source they had to turn on to meet peak demand. And here's the kicker. That peak price is what everybody gets paid at that moment. That's the SMP. So we have a policy that's forcing change and a market to make it all work financially. But there is a huge glaring vulnerability in this whole system. What happens when the wind stops blowing or the sun goes down? For renewables to really take over, they have to be just as reliable as the old stuff. And this is where a huge tech breakthrough changes the entire game. This is the classic problem, right? Everybody asks it. Solar panels are great during the day, but they don't do much at night. Wind turbines are useless when it's calm. But we need power 24/7. So how do you bridge that gap? The answer is storage. Meet the Energy Storage System, or ESS. Honestly, these are the absolute game changer. Just think of them as giant rechargeable batteries for the entire grid. During the middle of the day, when solar panels are cranking out way more power than we need, all that extra juice is used to charge up the ESS. Then, at night, when the sun's gone but we're all at home watching TV, the ESS kicks in and releases all that stored energy back to us. And we're not just talking about a simple battery here. This diagram shows you that an ESS is actually a super sophisticated system. It sits right at the heart of the grid, connected to everything. And its brain, the power management system, is constantly watching, analyzing, and deciding when to store power and when to push it out, perfectly balancing everything in real time. And this slide, this is where you see the incredible result. That graph on the right shows what typical solar power looks like, right? A big spike in the middle of the day and then nothing. But when you add a battery to the system, you can capture all that peak energy and save it for later. Look what happens. The system takes that unpredictable curve and turns it into a flat, totally dependable block of power that's there for you 24/7. This is the tech that makes a 100% renewable grid actually possible. So let's zoom back out for a second. When you put all of these pieces together, the rules, the marketplace, and the technology, you end up with a complete blueprint for how we build the clean power grid of tomorrow. It really just boils down to these three pillars. You have to have the smart policy, like the RPS, to force the change to begin with. Then you need an efficient market, with things like RECs, to give companies a financial reason to do it. And finally, you absolutely need the critical technology, like battery storage, to make the whole thing reliable. Take one away, and the whole thing falls apart. And the potential impact here is just staggering. This isn't just some small project. Big companies use almost half of all the world's electricity. By rolling out systems like the one we just walked through, we can get the world's biggest energy users to go green. And doing just that could slash global carbon emissions. I mean, that is a huge win for the planet. So the blueprint is here. The policy works. The market is designed. The technology is ready to go. The big question isn't really how anymore. It's how fast. Now that we have the plan, how quickly can we really build a 100% renewable world? That's what we'll be watching. Thanks for tuning in.